The Crithian War Council stood in horrified silence as the holographic display flickered with the aftermath. Commander Zekthor's three eyes widened in disbelief, his chitinous plates rattling with involuntary fear. 12 of their strongest battalions utterly destroyed, not by the legendary human special forces they had been warned about, but by what the humans casually referred to as regulars. This cannot be accurate, Zekthor hissed, his translator struggling to convey his species' concept of existential dread. But it was accurate. Painfully, terrifyingly accurate. 6 months earlier, humanity had been the galaxy's newest member, a species that had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. The Galactic Council had welcomed them with the patronizing warmth typically reserved for primitive civilizations. Most species needed centuries to adapt to galactic warfare standards. Humans would be no different. They were catastrophically wrong. Lieutenant Lisa Chen checked her rifle's power pack with mechanical efficiency, her dark eyes scanning the tree line of Xanthi 7. Beside her, Corporal James Rodriguez adjusted his helmet's HUD, highlighting 43 enemy positions in the valley below. Command says we hold this ridge until reinforcements arrive, Lisa said, her voice calm despite the odds. 300 Crithian shock troops were advancing toward their position. She and James led a squad of 12. When do reinforcements arrive? James asked, already knowing the answer. 72 hours. James grinned beneath his helmet. So a normal Tuesday. The other soldiers, ordinary men and women who had been farmers, teachers, mechanics before enlisting, checked their weapons without complaint. No dramatic speeches. No bravado. Just professionals preparing to do an impossible job. The Crithians had studied human military doctrine extensively. They knew about Navy SEALs, Spetsnaz, SAS, the elite units that had made humanity's reputation fearsome. What they failed to understand was that human regular forces were forged in the same crucible of expectations. The first Crithian wave crashed against the ridge like a tsunami of chitin and plasma fire. Lisa's squad responded with disciplined volleys, each shot precisely placed. Humans had a peculiar gift that unnerved every alien species. They could make violence into mathematics. James coordinated fire patterns while simultaneously calling artillery strikes on his wrist display. His movements were economical, efficient, the product of training regimens that would hospitalize most galactic species. Human basic training was harder than the elite programs of warrior races that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. A Crithian plasma bolt shattered the rock beside Lisa's head. She didn't flinch. Instead, she pivoted, fired 3 rounds, and eliminated the shooter before returning to her previous firing position. The entire motion took 1.4 seconds. The Crithians kept coming. They had numbers. They had superior technology. What they didn't have was humanity's terrifying normalcy of excellence. By hour 6, the Crithian commander ordered a retreat. He had lost 90 soldiers to 12 humans. The math didn't make sense. This wasn't possible, but it was. And it kept happening. The galaxy's intelligence network scrambled to understand. Surely these regulars were actually special forces in disguise, some kind of human deception? Ambassador Telvanna of the Confederacy finally asked Lisa directly during a diplomatic function. The human woman dressed in her standard uniform with modest decorations seemed confused by the question. Special forces? No, ma'am. I'm just regular army, infantry. But your combat performance exceeds our elite guard units, Telvanna insisted, her translator filled with disbelief. Lisa exchanged a glance with James, who stood nearby holding a drink, looking distinctly uncomfortable in the formal setting. Ma'am, I don't know how to explain this, Lisa said carefully. We're just doing our jobs. We train hard, follow orders, and look out for each other. That's just being a soldier. James spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. Every human in uniform is expected to perform at that level. It's not special. It's standard. Telvanna's diplomatic composure cracked. Standard? Your standard is our impossible. The realization spread through the Galactic Council like wildfire. Humanity didn't have a few elite units that were exceptional. They had systematized excellence across their entire military structure. Every soldier was trained to think, adapt, and overcome. Every squad could function independently with devastating effectiveness. The truly terrifying part came when intelligence reports revealed what human special forces actually were. Commander, Zekthor read the report 3 times. Certain there was a translation error. Human special forces underwent selection processes with 90% failure rates. They trained for years in conditions that would kill most galactic species. They operated in small teams behind enemy lines, achieving strategic objectives that required most civilizations to deploy armies. If regular humans could hold off forces 10 times their size, what could their elite warriors do? The galaxy collectively decided not to find out. Lisa and James returned to their unit after the diplomatic mission, relieved to be away from the political theater. Their squad was preparing for another deployment, another impossible mission that they'd complete through skill, determination, and the uniquely human assumption that impossible just meant difficult. Think they finally understand? James asked, cleaning his rifle. Lisa shrugged. Maybe, probably not. They keep looking for something special about us. What do you think makes us different? Lisa considered the question, watching their squad mates joke and train with equal intensity. I think we're the only species that made good enough into exceptional. We didn't wait for heroes. We built systems that turn ordinary people into extraordinary soldiers. James nodded. Every human's a regular. That's what scares them. The Galactic Council eventually sued for peace. Not because humanity deployed their special forces. They never needed to. The regulars were terrifying enough. Humanity's lesson to the galaxy was simple but profound. They didn't have heroes among soldiers. They had soldiers who were all expected to be heroic. The baseline was excellence. Anything less was unacceptable. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, other species whispered warnings to their young. Never fight the humans, especially not their regulars. The end.